part, start hitting each other across the table. Hello, Facebookers. I'm back. And we're keeping an eye on whether the Biden and she will behave like the senator from Oklahoma yesterday.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup, back from wherever, and I want to thank Ann. Thank you. I want to thank Maren Johns for filling in 2 of the last 3 weeks. Now we're going to give her a little extended break, but she'll be back in later December.
Okay. And want to remind everybody that November 20th coming up is the Transgender Day of Remembrance. There'll be remembrances all across the country and around the world.
And we're going to, on today's show, continue with a little more news on the successes of LGBTQ candidates in the latest elections and issues in those elections.
The House Republicans, you've probably been seeing them on the news, but maybe you didn't notice that they voted on defunding LGBTQ officials in the Biden administration and slashing funds for LGBTQ social services.
Really shameless. And speaking of shameless, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, who finally brought his girlfriend out of the closet, so to speak, but he is out of the race.
The Pope opens up the sacraments to LGBTQ people with very offensive caveats and cans a virulently anti-LGBTQ American bishop, as distinguished from the other bishops.
So confusing. What does he really think? Among those we lost this week, a real hero of LGBTQ liberation and the fight for rights, Sharon Kowalski. I'm not sure anyone these days knows who she was, but wow, what a fighter and what a huge headline a few decades ago.
Free Sharon Kowalski. That was the battle cry.
We'll tell you all about it.
Yes, Mexico's first out non-binary magistrate and a prominent LGBTQ activist and his partner were found dead, and thousands marched in Mexico City protesting, saying that the state killed them.
Well, we don't know what killed them at this point. Lots of gay winners at the Country Music Awards and LGBTQ Grammy nominees galore.
And I'm going to review Broadway's new musical, Harmony, by Barry Manilow and our pal, Bruce Sussman.
And show you a little of our interview with Bruce a few years ago. It's very charming.
About this show.
Yes, exactly. But I don't think you're going to be a sub for the performers, Andy.
Yeah, well,
on the basis of that.
I guess we should start in Congress. Mike Johnson, we learn outside his office, is now displaying a flag associated with a new apostolic Reformation network that wants to place the United States under the control of the ultra-right-wing Christians. The insurrectionists carried this flag to the Capitol in 2021.
There is no compromise in this guy. He is just going full speed ahead. And his timing is perfect to retain power for at least another year, because no one has an appetite for throwing him out and trying to find another one.
Right. So did you watch the Republican debate?
I did, because I am the co-host of Gay USA, and it is my job to watch all of this nonsense.
Well, it wasn't very edifying, but we did get to meet Senator Tim Scott's girlfriend.
Well, not during the debate, unfortunately. I would have loved to have her come on stage.
He has closeted up until now. Her name is Mindy Nose, a design and renovation manager for a real estate company in Charleston. And he was then basically the prime guy who did anti-gay stuff during the debate with this transphobic comment. If God made you a man, you play sports against men. Well, he doesn't want to play against men or women in this race anymore. He's out.
And that was not his only religious reference. He went on and on about how we have to really make a theocratic country. I do find her a little cute, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
And they met in some online dating situation, praying together.
Okay.
Bible study, I think, Bible study online.
Well, Congress people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are praying that LGBTQ elected officials in the Biden administration get no pay, or maybe $1. She got an amendment passed in an appropriations bill to cut the salary of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to $1, accusing him of using private planes funded by taxpayers to receive awards for the way certain people have sex, by which she means going to a Canadian LGBTQ rights organization. Pete was
on a business trip to Canada, and because he was going to be in Canada, the Canadian local gay rights group, LGBTQ rights group, said, "Oh, he's going to be in town. Let's give him an award." And so he graciously went over to there and accepted the award and went back to his work for.
So this is highly unlikely to pass in the Senate version of the bill. So
it's not going to pass, but I have to facetiously give the Republicans credit for their creativity. No Democrat ever thought of cutting an administration official's salary to $1. And so they enjoyed that so much, they did it for a couple more.
Yes, they did. Upstate New York Representative Claudia Tenney tried to get the salary of White House press secretary, out lesbian, Karine Jean-Pierre, cut to $1, accusing her of lying to the American people. Tenney, of course, embraces Trump's big lie and claims the Trump tax cuts paid for themselves. She also claimed most mass murderers are Democrats, and on and on and on. So lying is her MO. Her amendment failed, 165 to 257.
And then there's a vote today, I guess, on another Marjorie Taylor Greene one, trying to cut the salary of Dr. Rachel Levine, the Health and Human Services official, out trans, former health secretary in Pennsylvania. Green wants to cut Dr. Levine's salary to $1.
It seems to be all, they also went after Mayorkas, but it seems to be almost all LGBTQ people. And they cut $800,000 for LGBTQ senior housing in Boston from an appropriations bill. The Senate immediately put it in their bill. So again, they have to sit down and decide what stays and what goes.
I'm curious about how they're going to handle this. I mean, they did succeed in getting a bipartisan majority in the House to pass the continuing resolution on budget matters. But are they going to do that on these negotiations over these appropriations bills individually? It's still to be considered. Depends on who the Republicans assign to their negotiating team, I guess.
And Biden, I don't know if she's going to get paid by the Congress, but Biden has nominated the 10th out LGBTQ person, an out lesbian, Nicole Berner, to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. This would be the first out judge for that Maryland circuit.
Should we go to some of the election results?
We sure could. Let me see here.
Well, I was happy to see that LPAC, created as the Lesbian Political Action Committee. I'm not sure they still use the L as lesbian. Maybe they do. But they announced that 47 of their 67 endorsed candidates won last week. They do not endorse only lesbians. They endorse a range of people. But there's a little poster they put out of some of their winners. Very nice to see.
Quite the diverse group. And Mississippi, as expected, does have its first out LGBTQ legislator, Fabian Nelson. He had won the Democratic primary 69 to 31% in August, and that was considered election because there was nobody else on the ballot. But there was a write-in challenge that tried to stop him, but it fell far short.
Yeah.
All right. Moms for, we told you we did well in school board elections. Going to get a little bit more specific about that. Moms for Liberty faced big defeats in at least 4 states. In Virginia, 5 of their 6 candidates lost, and that doesn't include right-wing candidates like Meg Scalia Bryce, who was not endorsed by them but lost. She was conservative. 9 of 13 lost in Iowa. 4 of 4 lost in Minnesota, and there were losses in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Moms for Liberty does things you should understand, like offer bounties for turning in teachers who raise divisive issues, attacking the Trevor Project. They lobbied for Don't Say Gay. It's a horrible group, and people are on to them. And that means that, when we see these people get elected to the school board, it means we got to run.
Well, there was a very interesting revelation about a Moms for Liberty issue this week. Moms for Liberty is suing a school district for giving a pornographic book to a 17-year-old from a school library, I think. Well, a little further research shows that the Moms for Liberty representative asked a teacher friend at the school to have this 17-year-old get a book for her out of the library and pass it along to her, to the Moms for Liberty woman. The 17-year-old naively got the book, as she was asked to do, didn't look at it, didn't read it, just passed it along. And then the Moms for Liberty representative sued the school district for letting the 17-year-old check out this book.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, they're going after any book where people make love, which is like many, many novels, of course.
Any mention of LGBTQ people in these books qualifies by their standards as a pornographic and grooming book.
Or straight sex.
Yeah.
Well, in Pennsylvania, in the Penn Ridge School District, the right-wing board there had hired a consultant from the ultra-right Hillsdale College to incorporate their 1776 curriculum, which downplays slavery into the public schools. But on November 7th, 5 Democrats running on a pledge. No, that's not them. That's the next group. 5 Democrats running on a pledge to end that contract swept the election and seized control of the board. And the next one is Central Bucks School District. We told you about them last week. That's the ones there who swept the school board elections. Really, and they'll, this was, they ran against a right-wing board that banned pride flags, banned books, passed anti-trans policies, which has led to an investigation by the Department of Education. So it cost a lot of money to do this, but they did it.
Well, look, you just have to knuckle down and do it. And I have said repeatedly here how impressed I am by grassroots action, by real people in real places standing up and taking action when politicians seem to be hamstrung, just unwilling to do what needs to be done. And this was personified. Well, it actually took place a few weeks ago, but the video surfaced this week of a parent in Virginia Beach, Virginia, testifying to his local school board about the proposed anti-trans rules that the right-wing school board wanted to put into effect. And he, in his extremely direct and brief way, laid it all out.
I wasn't surprised by another delay at the last school board meeting, because no matter how hard you try to implement these discriminatory policies in the right way, you are never going to find a right way to do the wrong thing. And Governor Youngkin's policies are wrong. One of the ways you could tell is because you have speakers from groups like Moms for Liberty here to support them. And I'll be real simple in case you aren't paying attention. They're not the good guys. How can you tell? I can help. The good guys don't get declared extremist groups by human rights organizations. Never in history have the good guys been the ones trying to ban books. Never in history have the good guys been a segregationist group pushing to legislate identity. Never in history have the good guys been closely connected with and supported by hate groups like the Proud Boys. And the good guys don't put Hitler quotes for inspiration on the front of their newsletters. Newsflash, they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys here supporting bad policy. And if you support the same bad policy, guess what? You're one of the bad guys too. When you look around and see only the wrong people support what you're doing the wrong thing. Now, you've heard some speakers come up here and say how they love these kids but won't accept them. I'm here telling you that if your love makes somebody not want to be alive, it's not love. That's not love. Some speakers are going to get up here and talk about parental rights. The only right a parent has is the right to responsibility. And if you need somebody else to tell you who your kid is, you're probably not that good a parent. And some are going to get up here and tell you how it's the law. Well, I'd remind you that slavery and segregation also used to be the law here in Virginia, and that there is no right way to do the wrong thing. So do the right thing. Reject these policies that harm and endanger our LGBTQ students. Be the good guys while you still can.
How about him for president?
Matthew Connor, Virginia Beach, Virginia, hero.
Absolutely.
I'm happy we have the chance to air that. I hope that gets seen everywhere.
And, we're passing so many anti-LGBTQ policies in this country, mostly in the states, sometimes at school boards, that the UN Human Rights Committee says it's deeply concerned. And we're in violation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights that we signed in 1992. They also criticized racist policing practices in the United States, criminalization of the homeless, extrajudicial drone killings abroad, and violence in U.S. territories.
Yeah, people are noticing around the world. And PEN America has issued a report on school censorship around the country, state by state. We're going to link to that in our weekly show note. Go to our website, gayusatv.org, to sign up to get that weekly notice. Just one email a week that will tell you about what's on the show and give you a lot of extras like the link to that report.
That's totally free. Go to gayusatv.org, and you could also make a Thanksgiving offering to the show so we can keep going.
Oh, now it's not free anymore, Andy.
It is free. We will send it to you whether or not you donate.
We certainly will.
The best things in life are free. All right. Well, so, Michigan enshrined abortion rights through a referendum in 2022, but the Republican lawmakers there now, out of the majority now, are suing to block implementation of the voter-approved constitutional amendment. And then you read about what's happening in Ohio. They also passed constitutional amendment protecting reproductive rights. So they're looking to take control of that and say, no, the legislature will interpret that, not the judges. They also have a new bill in Ohio to explicitly ban drag.
It just goes on and on. How are these people not getting the message? They lose and lose and lose. They're going to get thrown out of office next year.
Well, it's very hard to overcome. These are some of these. Michigan Democrats got control back. But in Ohio, they have a veto-proof majority, and the Democrats are now focusing on just trying to let them not have veto-proof majorities in the next election. They're going to spend some money
step by step. We need that. We need to.
So if you have a Democratic governor, that he or she will not get overridden.
Look, I'm happy the Democratic Party is finally paying attention to the problem in the state legislatures. For years, they just ignored it and concentrated on that.
We fell asleep in 2010, and that's what they redrew the lines, and we were caught flat-footed, and it's very hard to claw it back because the Supreme Court has ruled it's fine if you want a partisan gerrymander.
Well, it's hard, but that's what the Republicans have been focused on for decades, and they've done a very successful job of taking control of most of the state legislatures.
Yes, they have.
And the Democrats have to wake up. Footnote on the school book bannings and PEN America's report. Pink, the wonderful singer, is teaming up with PEN America to hand out 2,000 books, could really be 20,000 books, banned books at her concerts in Miami and Orlando. If you're going to go to Florida, you might as well do something positive while you're there.
Because in Florida, a non-binary teacher was fired for using the gender-neutral title MX. A.V. Very, the person's name, taught physics at the online Florida virtual school. After coming out, was told the only acceptable titles are Ms., Mrs., or Miss. I remember when Ms. was controversial.
Yeah.
Very filed a complaint at the EEOC that could challenge the Don't Say Gay law. They pointed out that teachers are allowed to use a gender-neutral title, doctor.
Justin Vivian Bond uses MX. It's not unheard of.
And while these purges proceed, Florida has a shortage of 7,000 teachers.
Well, that's probably just fine with Governor DeSantis and his crew because they want to destroy the public schools.
Well, he's destroying the Disney district, his hostile takeover of that special tax district. More than 40 of the 370 employees have quit. They say the right-wing board stopped caring for employees in the community and only care about cronyism and political gain. And they say the district is no longer functional.
Well, our governor in New York is doing a little better. Governor Hochul signed the proclamation of the Intersex Day of Solidarity and is having the State Department of Health, excuse me, I'm sucking on a cough drop, do a public information campaign on unnecessary surgery for those who are intersex. And I think that's a very useful and progressive thing for her to
And
do.
Oakland, California has designated part of the city as an LGBTQ cultural district. Mayor Sheng Tao said, "We love you. You are what makes Oakland so beautiful and are what makes Oakland so proud."
And a school board in Texas is backing down. They're reinstating the young trans man to his role in the school production of the play Oklahoma because of community outrage. When this story got out and became national news that he had been rejected from the role, a male role, heaven forbid a trans man play a male role, the community rose up in protest, and the school board has seen the error of its ways.
The board
And
did a total reversal. I mean, they voted 7-0 to, get off their backs.
how they're scared.
The Trevor Project is quitting X, the hate site formerly known as Twitter, because of all the anti-LGBTQ hate and vitriol on there.
And the NHL may be chicken about rainbow symbols on hockey sticks or jerseys or whatever in warm-ups before games on Pride Night. But the AA League Utah Grizzlies are flying their flag very high. Look at these. These are gorgeous, these jerseys. I think that's a grizzly paw on the bottom of the jersey.
Right. Did we talk? I'm just looking at my list. Are we going to update people on the mayor?
You should tell us about the mayor of New York and the trouble he's in.
Well, Mayor Adams is in a heap of trouble, but we always thought that would happen given the kind of people that he associates with. And a lot of it has to do with allegedly taking illegal campaign donations from Turkey, actually from the country, that are filtered here. There he is with the mayor of a Turkish mayor, but he goes over to Turkey all the time. But no one is asking him the question, what about this Turkish regime that you're so in love with? They're the most repressive in NATO. They won't allow any gay demonstrations of any kind, no pride parades, no demonstrations, crackdowns on women. And Erdogan, the president of Turkey, said Hamas is a liberation group. Now, that ought not be a very popular opinion with Mayor Adams.
And the Turkish police attacked the pride parades very violently. So yes. None of that has been talked about. And Mayor Adams is still ducking questions about the police murder here of Kowalski Trawick.
No, he's basically saying, I'm not going to do anything until a decision is made, and then I'll meet with the family after it's all over.
But I think where you were headed earlier was, update on Bubba Copeland, mayor of from Alabama, who committed suicide when he was revealed to be cross-dressing in pictures online. The update on him is that there are now local women who are protesting because he evidently, everybody started to say, oh, the poor guy. Yes, he was a cross-dresser, but he's now been abused by being revealed, and it made him kill himself, and we should be sympathetic. Well, it turns out that he was doing things like posting local women's pictures on porn sites.
Yeah.
That was not a nice thing to do.
No, I mean, not necessarily naked pictures, but using their names and photos of them in these fantasy things, these erotic fantasies. And he also penned erotic fantasies of murdering a local woman. Now, again, this is his fantasy life, but it was online, and it got back to them, and it was very distressing to them.
All right, a couple of nicer notes of support of trans people, kids, actors, in line with our Virginia Beach new best friend. Marlon Wayans came out some time ago about having a trans child a few years ago, but has now done a new special, a comedy special, and goes into some depth about his support of his trans son, and talks about his evolution to this and his really deep understanding now. It's a special called Good Grief. You can look for that. And Billie Eilish this week, the famous singer who once said that she was very, 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 very straight, has amended that statement. And now at 21, still very young, says that in an interview that she is attracted to women, but intimidated by them. That she never felt like a full girl, never felt desirable. It's a very complex statement by her at a young age, very thoughtful.
Should we run our Jim McGreevey video or just talk
Sure.
about it? All right. So Jim McGreevey had an announcement this week. Let's run the videotape.
One has to look deeply into the mirror of one's soul and decide one's unique truth in the world. And so my truth is that I am a gay American. I engaged in an adult consensual affair. It was wrong, it was foolish, it was inexcusable. I accept total and full responsibility for my actions. I have decided the right course of action is to resign.
I'm imperfect, and I'll always be imperfect. It's important to take accountability, to do the next right thing. It was painful, but I would not have traded anything that I've experienced. It's made me a better person, more compassionate. A lot of the guys and gals that I work with come from difficult circumstances. They don't always have schools that work, the opportunities.
My dad got a second chance. He decided as part of his seminary that he would go into prisons and do prison ministry. We had a lot of people that just come out of prison home for dinner. His work taught me a lot about second chances and a lot about people. What's the point if we just throw everyone away who's ever made a mistake?
Yeah. And it goes on from there. So he's running for mayor of Jersey City.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the Senate race in New Jersey next year, too. We're finally getting rid of, what's his name? The crook, Menendez.
Oh, Menendez.
So
Not yet.
Well, he's announced that he's not running for re-election.
He did. Okay.
Yes. So Andy Kim, a very highly regarded congressman from New Jersey, has declared his intention to run. And now Tammy Murphy, the wife of the governor, has also declared for the seat. Well, her introductory video that she put out today is very impressive, very clever in appealing to suburban voters. And she's a solid activist who has worked on a lot of issues over the years. So I wouldn't count her out, but it does seem a little strange. Well, Hillary Clinton ran for the Senate after she was...
Lurleen Wallace.
Yes, it's a long line of people. So Tammy Murphy
Chase Smith came in after her husband died.
Well, and what's her name from Wyoming? The first woman in the House was a widow of a former politician. And so there's a lot of that. So that's interesting. And Abigail Spanberger is giving up her House seat to run for governor of Virginia in 2025. That's when Youngkin's term is up, and you only get one term in Virginia. You can't run consecutively. You would know that better than I. Spanberger could have a good chance of being elected governor, I think. And then back to Republican adjacent politics, the log cabin Republicans. You may remember a few years ago that they gave a big award to Melania Trump for being such an upstanding citizen.
I call them a man bites dog story.
Yes, exactly. So this time, and we don't have to run this video, but they gave an award to Claudia Conway. No, they gave the award to Kellyanne Conway, who's never done anything for us, and her lesbian daughter, who is quite a pistol and who basically, didn't she ask to be separated from her parents?
She's 19 now. Yeah.
But she has always been great. But she gets up at the log cabin dinner and says, well, my mother is supportive of me and she's a great gal and whatever. It's a little surrealism in everyday life.
Pinkwashing. So,
well, luckily, I don't think Kellyanne is running for anything, but I don't think she's ever disavowed Trump.
No. So the Pope got a nice headline in the New York Times this week and elsewhere, of course. Vatican issues paper endorsing baptism for transgender people. Pope pushes inclusion, but barriers remain. So transgender people can be baptized now, serve as godparents and be witnesses at church weddings. Well, I know the church can be. This Pope is, but this is a Pope who condemns gender ideology. I was unaware of any official ban on transgender people from the sacraments, but anything that could cut down on the stigmatization of trans people is welcome. But here come the caveats. Trans people can be baptized if there are no situations where there's a risk of causing public scandal or disorientation among the faithful. What does that mean? Also says a same-sex couple can have their child baptized if the child is adopted or born of a surrogate, and the godparents can be gay if they lead a life that conforms to the faith. That knocks me out.
That they can't have sex? What is the?
If you're in a gay marriage, no, you cannot be godparents.
Only if you're living together?
It's just ridiculous.
Well, he ought to have a little chat with the Catholic schools in America that have been throwing kids of gay parents out of the schools.
By the way, anyone can baptize. You just take water, pour it over somebody, say, I baptize thee in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and it's done, and they won't go to hell if they die.
Is that a version of the ice bucket challenge?
Well, I'm just saying, anybody can do it. You don't need a priest.
Okay.
All right, talk about what else the Pope did this week.
Well, he fired a bishop in Texas, Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, because the bishop was too far right and kept challenging the Pope and saying, what do you say, he was an illegitimate Pope?
I mean, Strickland is the guy who went out to the LA Dodgers Stadium to protest them giving an award to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And there were two bishops who investigated him and said, look, it's just not feasible that he continue in office. He's so far to the right. And he's still going to be a thorn in the Pope's side, but he's not going to have this job. Tyler, Texas, where we just learned every month they have a gay mart, basically, where all gay vendors come out and sell things to each other. This is East Texas, and it's quite a political statement to do that.
I would like Matthew Connor of Virginia Beach, Virginia, to be the president. And I would like Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to fill every cabinet position in that administration.
Now, since the Pope cares so much about natural law, he might want to read the new research out of Spain, not news to us, but this group, I'm not going to mispronounce it, found that same-sex contact in 261 mammalian species, 1,500 species in total, including spiders, fish, reptiles, and birds, they concluded that same-sex activity can play an adaptive role in maintaining social relationships and mitigating conflict.
I just think it's all random. But whatever. Should we talk about some of the people we lost this week?
Yes. Yes.
Sharon Kowalski died in St. Cloud, Minnesota at the age of 67. I'm frankly surprised she was still alive. It's been so long since she was in the headlines. She died on October 1st. She is survived by her long-suffering partner, Karen Thompson. In 1983, Sharon Kowalski, seated there in a wheelchair on the left, was in a car accident, and she suffered brain damage. Karen took care of her for a while, and then Sharon's parents decided that they did not approve of this relationship, and they had Sharon put in a nursing home, and they stopped Karen from being able to visit her for years. And they applied for guardianship of Sharon, and this became the most enormous legal battle for years in the 1980s and 90s.
It was a cause célèbre. As I said, the battle cry was free Sharon Kowalski. What they had to do was get to Sharon and prove that she was compos mentis and could make decisions for herself. And that's what they did.
The parents were accusing Karen of sexually abusing Sharon. That's how they won guardianship at first. But Karen persisted in court and challenged that and did win eventually. I'm sorry, I stepped on your line there.
And Sharon improved dramatically after that. Their case educated the community about the need to draw up powers of attorney for healthcare and living wills in the days before we could legalize our relationships. They're going to have a celebration of Sharon's life in 2024.
What is so moving is that after years of the parents claiming that Karen was abusing Sharon and that Sharon didn't want to be with Karen, Sharon was able to express herself and say, yes, she wanted to be with Karen, and then did just show such happiness when they were finally reunited. So they evidently had another 20 or 30 years together because Sharon has just died on October 1st.
And then feminist writer, lawyer, and activist Linda Hirschman has died at 79, not herself lesbian. Though she was the author of Victory, the Triumphant Gay Revolution, written in 2013 before the backlash.
Well, you know, I knew Linda Hirschman a little. I think she interviewed me for that book. I might be in it with a quote or two, but she was an iconoclast and prided herself on that. And the objections to the book were really that she was a little too triumphalist, that she claimed 10 years ago that the revolution is over, we've won everything. We know a number of people who sort of act like that. And you have only to look at what's going on now to know that that was naive and premature. But she certainly was a significant writer. She wrote a book about women at work. She wrote...
Well, Women at Work. She challenged women not to stay at home. Get to work and get a life before it's too late was the title of that book. She also encouraged women to marry down so that they have the power in the relationship and he has to do the dishes. Or stop doing the dishes entirely, she said. Just have one child.
She was unique, let's put it that way.
She was. And then Bill McCallion has died at 71. He joined the Gay Activists Alliance when he was 18 years old in 1969. He marched on the first Christopher Street Liberation Day March in 1970, active with GAA for 10 years. His first partner, Michael Giovinco, died of AIDS in 1990, years after they separated, but Bill traveled to Boston every weekend to care for Michael in the last months. Bill himself had HIV and was saved by the drugs that came along in 1996. He moved to Florida for work and to live, survived by his partner, Sam Piparato. And this has all been shared by John Volker, who had also been one of his partners.
long-lived person with HIV and a great activist.
And we'll have a little short video in our email about him.
Okay. Moving on to other international news.
Yes. Well, in Mexico, you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
In Mexico, the first openly non-binary magistrate there, LGBTQ activist Jesus Ociel Bena Sociedo, was found dead in his home in Aguascalientes Monday, alongside his partner, also dead. The causes are unknown. The security minister of the country said there's no evidence of foul play, though he said one of the lifeless bodies was found holding a cutting instrument, but there's no traces of blood, they say. It's quite a mystery. But nevertheless, thousands of marched in Mexico City chanting that the state killed him.
Yeah, we don't even know why they're chanting that, but I'm sure we'll hear more about this case down the road.
Well, he was receiving a lot of threats over being so open about who he was, or they were. Yes. Non-binary, excuse me.
In Malaysia, the government has instituted a new policy. There must be kill switches at concerts to just quickly cut them off. This is in retaliation for the kiss that was performed by members of the group The 1975 at a concert last year. I think it was last year. So now they can just, boom, end those concerts right away if anybody else tries to perform a same-sex kiss.
So in Latvia, the parliament has finally passed legislation establishing same-sex civil unions. The High Court had ordered them in 2020 and gave the legislature until last year to do it, and they didn't do it. And that at that point, they said, okay, if you want to get a relationship recognized, go to court because the legislature is not doing it. But then Latvia elected an openly gay president, Edgar Rinkovic. Is that how we say his name? 49 years old. The first out gay LGBTQ head of state, not head of government, but head of state in Europe. So I think that turned things around.
Yes, you would think so, that you could elect him and not have civil unions, but they have a long way to go to get to actual legalization of marriage. The Hong Kong Gay Games ended peacefully. They had 2,400 compete, which is about a quarter of what they would usually expect there. But in spite of objections by right-wing legislators in Hong Kong, they managed to carry that off. I wonder if that was discussed between Biden and Xi Jinping this week.
As I said, Taiwan wouldn't participate in the Hong Kong one because they were too nervous.
Went to Guadalajara.
Combined with the Guadalajara, they had somewhat more people.
Yeah,
because they competed in both places.
Not a lot, but I predict there will be at least 10,000 in Valencia, Spain, in 4 years.
10,000, okay. And
we had more than 10,000 in New York in 1994.
You were one of the organizers.
Happily. And in Italy, another death to report. Countess Marina Cincogna died at 89. That's her on the left, with her longtime partner Benedetta Gardona, who she adopted so that they would have a legal relationship, because of course same-sex marriage is still not legal in Italy. But she was a powerhouse movie producer and
she produced Luis Buñuel's Belle de Jour in 1967. I remember that one.
There she is in the middle, hanging out with Gina Lollobrigida on the left and Jane Fonda on the right. She was a big star in Italy as an out lesbian and has now died at 89.
All right. Entertainment news?
Yes.
So Tracy Chapman won Song of the Year at the Country Music Awards for a 1988 song, Fast Car, which we will link to in our email with her doing it. That's been described as a lesbian anthem. It's topping the charts thanks to a cover by Luke Combs. There's Luke there on the left. Chapman is 59, is the first Black songwriter to win the award. The original song got Chapman 3 Grammy nominations in 1989, and she won for Best Female Pop Vocalist.
I love that song, and I listened to both versions preparing for this. her version is so far superior to his. It's really sad because hers is just, it's so soulful and wonderful and emotional, and his is just sort of flat. I like country music, but it doesn't compare to her original version.
And if we didn't say so, Tracy Chapman is a lesbian.
She is.
The brothers Osborne, who are not lesbians, but one of them is gay, TJ.
Let's see, looking at this picture, if you can figure out which one is gay.
You never know, Anne. Let's not engage in stereotypes. I mean,
it's the one on the right with the jacket, TJ.
You know, John could be a bear, right? You know.
And it's true. It's true. And the hat is sort of a.
Anyway, they won Group of the Year and Duo of the Year for the 6th time each. So coming out on TJ's part hasn't lessened the love that is extended to them.
I still think their song Younger Me, or TJ's song Younger Me, is one of the all-time greats. And if you haven't heard that, go to YouTube immediately and look up Younger Me by the Brothers Osborne.
Let's talk about the Grammy nominations.
Okay.
Lots of LGBTQ.
I want to do a quick list.
Yeah, go ahead. All right.
Luke Combs for Fast Car, the Brothers Osborne, Janelle Monáe, Brandi Carlile, along with Miley Cyrus and Brandi Clark, Rufus Wainwright, Wanda Sykes, David Bowie, Little Richard, Victoria Monet, Ice Spice, Boy Genius, Allison Russell, Justin Tranter, Troye Sivan. That's just a partial.
And Shane McAnally for Best Country.
Partial list.
Songwriter of the Year, non-classical. And Tyler Childers, who's not himself gay, his hit song, In Your Love, about two guys who find love working in a Kentucky coal mine. Let's show that picture. It's Colton Haynes and James Scully. And we're going to link to this song, but there's the picture from the video of
coal miners in love
in olden times.
Yes.
This is a flashback, and the lyricist is Kentucky Poet Laureate appointed by Governor Andy Beshear, Silas House, and so he wrote the lyrics. He's an out gay guy. The governor made him the Poet Laureate of Kentucky and got reelected.
I do have one piece of bad news for you about the Grammys. Also nominated in the reggae category, Buju Banton and Beanie Man.
Buju Banton. Wow. And Dave Chappelle, I think, got a nomination.
Yes. Yeah, so that's that. Have you continued to watch Fellow Travelers?
Yes.
Me too. I think it's improving. I think it's still a little less deep than I want it to be, but it's sucking.
I mean, for a lot of people, it will be eye-opening history, but
it's certainly explicit.
Very explicit.
Yeah.
They got into rough sex this past week. All right.
Well, yes, a little bit.
Now we don't know what kind of sex Zeke Smith and Nico Santos are into. Zeke is a 2-time Survivor contestant, 35. He married Nico, star of Superstore and Crazy Rich Asians, in Palm Springs on November the 4th. They've been together for 6 years. The ceremony ended up being on Pride weekend there. Mark McKinney of Kids in the Hall presided over the ceremony.
Zeke is trans, non-binary, and they look like a very happy couple, but not so happy. Lucas Gage and Chris Appleton. Now, it seems to me that 6 months ago when they married, we announced this. Lucas on the left, you will recognize from White Lotus. Chris is a very famous Hollywood hairstylist, but the marriage was evidently not made in heaven. They are divorcing after 6 months because of irreconcilable differences.
Their Vegas nuptials were just shown on last week's episode. I didn't watch this, of The Kardashians, a show I've never seen. Kim presided at the wedding.
Oh, well, her record around marriage is not great.
Which she pointed out in her role.
Yes. New movie out this weekend in New York and LA and then beyond. Beyond the Aggressives, You may remember 25 years ago, the documentary The Aggressives, which was then billed as being about butch lesbians, very butch lesbians, mostly of color in, I think, New Jersey, I want to say, but I'm not sure of that. Anyway, they've done a follow-up now, and their lives have become very complex as they grow and age and evolve. And it's quite fascinating. And it's about how they deal with, some of them are transitioning, some are not, issues of healthcare, family relationships, lovers. One was in prison for quite a while, and how they identify themselves. So a worthwhile documentary, and it was produced by Showtime. So I suspect it will end up there eventually, but no word of that yet. And the producer is Wellington Love, a friend of ours who has a long history.
Quote they put on the screen from James Baldwin at the top of the show. You have to decide who you are and force the world to deal with you, not with its idea of you. That's
Very
a lesson for all of us.
But recommended. All right. Harmony.
1 Million Moms, the right-wing Grass Tops group, is attacking the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and helpfully letting us know what to look forward to. 2 Broadway musicals in the parade feature non-binary performers, Alex Newell in Shocked and Justin David Sullivan in And Juliet.
These 1 Million Moms types are going to disappear soon because they're really about 2 people. They got a few more signatures, but luckily corporations have learned that they are not powerful and they can be ignored. And the Macy's parade will go on with those.
Well, they got 150,000 signatures for that, saying they're never going to go to Macy's again, so it'll make it safer for the rest of us.
Yes. Oh, I watched Naiad, the Diana Naiad film starring Annette Bening as Diana Naiad and Jodie Foster as her best friend and helper through the swim from Cuba to Florida, Bonnie. I love Jodie Foster. She was great. I was a little uncomfortable with Annette Bening playing Diana Naiad, but whatever.
She certainly threw herself into it.
Yes, she did. And Jamie Lee Curtis threw herself into it with a speech at the Out 100 party in LA. Gave a very rousing speech supporting her trans child, and we're going to link to that in our show note also.
You really need to sign up for these emails. There are so many extras this week.
Well, it's like the New York Times. I was talking to someone the other day who said they prefer the online New York Times to the paper, because there are so many extras, so many videos, so many other things to find in the online version. So that's our show note also.
Right. Well, I went back to Broadway this week, and, Ann and I first saw Harmony, the new Barry Manilow, shouldn't call it new, the Barry Manilow, Bruce Sussman musical during its off-Broadway run at the National Yiddish Theater, Folksbein, last year, and we admired it greatly. It's the stirring story of the massively popular a cappella singing group, the Comedian Harmonists, who were done in by the rise of Hitler in the early 1930s because there were Jews among the 6-man group.
And they were in Germany.
It opened this week at the Ethel Barrymore Theater on Broadway, Bigger, Better, and I was profoundly moved by it. The producers didn't plan it this way, but Harmony could not be more timely with the rise of anti-Semitic hate around here and around the world. Now, while this show has been germinating for many years, some of its lines seem as if they were written for today as the USA becomes more autocratic and fascist. But the show is not all Sturm und Drang. It's a very engaging, attractive group of guys who are the singers. And they're all but one of them is making their Broadway debut. We also get to just see how entertaining and funny they can be. They're anchored and illuminated by Chip Zien as the older version of the harmonist called Rabbi, telling a really fantastic story and ruminating about all that was lost. And it's also lit up by the women in their lives and cameos by actors playing Josephine Baker and Albert Einstein. Warren Carlyle did the direction and the energetic choreography. So I'd say it's not to be missed. It's a great show.
And Bruce Sussman, who did the lyrics and book of the show, is a friend of ours. And he was here talking to us in 2019 as the show was about to open a New York run, which was then postponed by COVID. And it took this show, it's been all over, and it's been a very long journey to get this finally to Broadway, which we're thrilled to have here. But we talked to Bruce, and we thought we'd show you a little of that from a few years ago.
Harmony tells the story, as you mentioned, of the comedian harmonists. Well, who are they? Because most of us have never heard of them. I know when I discovered the story about them, I didn't know anything about them.
We have a picture of them back then. You're going to put the picture up of the comedian harmonists?
Yes,
yeah, there they
they
are.
Well, that is the very photo that launched these 1,000 ships, because I saw that photo in the New York Times. It was a review of a documentary about them that was running down at the Public Theater. You may remember there used to be a screening room down there.
Yes.
And they did art films and documentaries. And the New York Times did a review of this documentary and ran that picture, that photo that you just put up. And I looked at that photo and I said, who are these people? Their hair brilliantined. It looked so 1930s, those gorgeous tuxedos they were wearing. And the headline was odd. The headline was Eberhard Fechner's epic documentary, The Comedian Harmonists at the Public. There were a lot of words in there I didn't recognize. Eberhard Fechner, who's he? Comedian harmonists, what an odd pairing of words.
Yeah.
Read the review, and it sounded very compelling. So I schlepped down to the Public Theater. I'll never forget it. It was a rainy, cold April night. Went down alone Tuesday night, and I watched 4.5 hours of German documentary making, in German with subtitles. Not my usual way to spend a Tuesday night.
But this wasn't 4.5 hours of them, was it?
It was.
Wow.
It was 4.5 hours.
Wow.
Well, 4.5 hours of their story.
Really?
With little excerpts of them and a lot of the recordings dubbed over it, and their wives and their daughters and all
They all
kinds
look gay to me.
They weren't.
Okay.
And I think everybody then looked gay.
Yes.
They were just so stylish.
Exactly.
They were so stylish.
Yes.
And I came out of there and I went to a payphone on Lafayette Street. Remember payphones?
Yes.
And I called Barry in California and I said, I think I found it. I said, I think I found the story we're looking for to write a musical. We'd been wanting to write a musical from the day we met. And this pop music thing was this amazing diversion. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about, but go get it.
And they did. And it's at the Ethel Barrymore Theater.
So nostalgic to see us together in a studio instead of side by side online in our apartments.
I think we look better now.
Well, I agree with that, but I do hope we get back in the studio eventually.
And, you know, as much as I like Danny DeVito, the less said about his new play, I Need That by Teresa Rebeck. We got a picture of Danny in the show. I would say the better. That's it for that. I also saw Diane Wiest in Scene Partners at the Vineyard Theater. It was great to see. She's a 2-time Academy Award winner back on stage, and the premise is promising. A 75-year-old woman with no experience who moves to LA to be a star. That's what it's about. And it's very arch. It's very wacky, very, very wacky stagecraft. But I don't know if the whole thing holds together.
Okay, although I do like her. And that's it for us this week. And we will see you next week.